Hi, everyone. Welcome to Unapologetically You with myself, Tuls, and the beautiful Kelly. We discuss all things health and wellness, and hopefully, we can support you and your family, give you thought provoking conversations to get you motivated to look after yourself and the ones you love. Today, you might have noticed there is a very different type of person on our heading if you're watching this on YouTube. If you are listening to this on Spotify, make sure you hit the follow button. But basically, we are going to talk about being unapologetically Taylor Swift. Now, why? Well, I'm going to give credit to Kelly actually having this idea where we normally ask our guests, what makes you want to look after your health and wellness, but we never really ask our core question, which is what makes you unapologetically yourself? And what is better than picking apart a celebrity? Now, Kelly probably knows a little bit more than I have. So I've done my little bit of digging on the internet. The trusty technology is giving me information about this. But I'm heavily relying on Kelly. Like, I've got concert tickets, and I don't even know most of her songs. So I'm probably not the best person to talk about Taylor Swift, but the research has it that maybe she'll give me some inspiration about how she is being unapologetically herself. So without further ado, you hear her laughing in the background. Kelly, hi.
Hello. I'm laughing because my daughter went to Taylor Swift and absolutely loved it. And we were
Yeah.
bombarded with Taylor Swift for weeks, months beforehand. So I actually do know a lot of Taylor Swift. And yeah, and so it might be the first thing that I will know a little bit more about than Tuls on a
Oh,
topic that we're going to chat about.
I love
Hmm.
that. I love that. Okay, so I before we go into Taylor Swift, I love this part of our podcast. I hope I'm not the only one. So if you're listening in, please let us know. Do you actually ask these questions as well to yourself? Kel, what was your biggest win so far in the last 7 days?
Because we've got some friends coming up for the weekend, and I'm so looking forward to that. So just organizing, getting that all to come together. It's been a little while in the making, so I'm thrilled that we managed to organize our time because you know how precious
Yeah,
time is for each of us, and
yeah,
we live far apart from each other.
yeah.
So looking forward to seeing Simone and Andrew come up this weekend.
And like, I don't know about you, but isn't that the
Mhm.
whole point of life? Isn't it about, it's not
Yeah.
about work. It isn't really about our purpose. It's about the connections. And when we're connecting with the people that we really enjoy spending time with, we learn things from their perspective, right? And we're conscious,
Oh my goodness.
constantly learn.
Yes. Absolutely. It's some of the conversations that we have, and it's not even me talking in these conversations, it's me listening a lot of the time. So, and I am a listener. I love listening and
Mm,
learning. But yeah, no, very, very special. And that really is what life is about, especially for you and I, Tols. I know I've been talking to you a bit about, oh no, well, you introduced me to it, the human design. And when we looked into
mm.
it, we were both in slightly different ways, people, weren't we?
Yeah, I think
So you were,
so.
yeah,
Yeah,
you were the people, you wanted to be around all the people in the valleys. So the valleys were your happy place.
yeah.
Um, yeah, because a lot of people are in the valley, and I was like, I love the mountains, I love the views from up high, I love the breeze, I love the sunsets and the sunrises that you see from the mountains.
Mm.
But I did enjoy, according to my human design, it was I did enjoy all the people that surrounded it and enjoyed these things along with me.
Yeah, and I think
So
that the human design, from my point of view, it gives us a little bit of information about where our characteristics may have ebbed from astrologically, but
Mhm.
also it's taking it with a pinch of salt, just to say this may be characteristics of how the human design is
Mhm.
dictating for you, but you can always pick things apart. Like, I always thought I was a people person, and since COVID hit and I kind of was allowed to retreat, I embraced that
Mhm.
introspection side of myself, and I really
Yeah.
acknowledge that that is where I can gain my own energy. Whereas I thrive in new environments, but it does take a lot of my energy out, and I really couldn't understand how that was counterbalanced. And now, having the opportunity to delve deeper into my own types of personality, what serves me, and the way I can enhance my relationships through those rituals and practices, it really does give me that opportunity to go, oh, actually, yeah, this is a part of my characteristic. And I think for general, even people listening, you don't need to be typecast into one category. You can embody, multiple layers. You
Mhm.
can be a chameleon.
Oh, we're all layer upon layer, and given the right environment, we can be all things, but not all of us have lots of different environments, or are exposed to a lot of different environments, right?
That's true.
So
And I feel
yeah.
like it's either within you to explore that sense of curiosity, or it's not within you to explore it. I think you and I, Kelly, are very exploratory when it comes to different people's personalities, information. And as you said, you're a listener. Like, you have this inner like calling that you just want to learn more information about, either another person's perspective on money or religion or science and technology. It's like it's almost like, yeah, you're just like, give me more, give me more.
I'm a question asker as well, I guess. So I ask the question and then I listen to the answer. But yeah, you're right. You've given some good examples of me in little parentheses
Oh, nice. Okay,
listening.
so next
Yeah.
question. What made you
Yeah.
smile lately? What has made you smile?
Listen to my big arm. So many things. We're having a second summer here.
Yeah.
So after a bit of cooler weather, which I was craving a bit of cooler weather, and we got it for about a week, and I'm like, oh, bring back summer. And then what? Summer came back. So I'm happy with that. Um, and I guess I'm getting a little bit further ahead in what I'm studying at the moment. So it's always good to see a step forward in anything,
I
in
love it.
anything. But yeah, this study has been it's been a complex thing for me to go back to studying when I haven't done it for the very, very, very longest time. What
Why?
has
Why
made you
is that?
smile?
What do
Why? Why did
Yeah.
haven't I studied for the longest time? Um, being a mum. that's my that's my
Everything,
reason.
life.
Absolutely. You know what? Some people, and I so admire them, have children, and these are probably the people you read about rather than see everywhere. But have children and then go back and finish high school, or go back and do uni, or do a PhD while they're um, working and possibly in a relationship and being a mum. Like, oh my goodness gracious, how do they do it? So yeah, my focus was elsewhere, and I maybe am not that person who can put well, I know I'm not. I can't put equal focus on two things and be good at two things, or I can't put equal focus on two things. Maybe that's more the point.
Yeah,
I
but
can't be too.
you're just focused on
Yeah.
one and doing that fully. You're doing that 100%. And a lot of
I
times,
do.
sometimes if we have our paths scattered, we can't give 100% to one path. We need to like give 25% to one, 25% to another, yada, 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 right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you do. I just this is the perfectionist in me. It's hard to be a perfectionist. It's hard to live with one as well. And I do really try hard to let it go. There was one online exam I did, and I wanted 100%, and I got 80, which meant I got one question wrong. I think it
Oh,
was only one question wrong. Yeah, I know,
that's so
but there was
annoying.
the opportunity to go back and do it again. But and I did, and I went back and did it again. it was only this particular section. So it was a 3-hour exam, but after every 20 minutes, there was like you could sort of stop and get it auto marked and then go on to the next section instead of doing all of it. And that's what I was doing. So there was this 20-minute section. I went back and did that again. But when I got to the question I got wrong, I went, stop, there is no way to get it right. So I emailed and went, wait, there's no way you can get this wrong. The answers do not match the question entirely. And plus, you're a bit hypocritical about the information you've given in order to work this question out, because anyway, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, they wrote back and said, you are right. I'm like, darn right I am. Go
Oh
ahead. Don't
my
worry about it. I'm
God.
like, no, I'm not going to put up. Yeah, I mean, I will, but I want to go back and get 100. And they said, don't worry about it. You've passed. I'm like, nah,
You are
I
hilarious.
want
I
the
never knew
100.
that side of you. How
Me
interesting.
either. See, it comes out. This is why I shouldn't study. It consumes me. So anyway, I'm still sitting on 80%. They have not gone back and given me 100.
Wow,
So
Kelly.
I'll either be okay with it or I won't. But either way, I've passed. I just
You
wanted to pass with perfection.
yeah, I get that. Anybody who's studying right
Yeah.
now, can resonate with Kelly's experiences, let us know.
I hope not, because it's really hard. I should have just let it go. As soon as they
Yeah.
said you've passed, it's fine, let it go. Like just move on. And I should have, like, I'd be finished that module now, but no, I'm not moving. Not moving on. Anyway, what has
Perfection
made you
at its
smile? Yeah.
perfection at its finest, I think. The things that have made me smile. Okay, so this is going to be, I think we mentioned this before, but I'm going to jump on the same bandwagon. Um, it's just finding the joy in simplicity. Like sipping a morning cup of coffee, having the sun on your face, like having
Oh,
I absolutely revel the
yeah.
fact that I get to make up my schedule. Like I feel so privileged. I've got to a point where I do make up my schedule, and I am so grateful for that. So I feel like the thing that made me smile the most is those little things. Like, and this morning I caught myself like being a little bit irritable with, so I'm at home right now with my parents just for a week, and there's been a bit of a hiccup with a car, so I've stayed a little bit longer than planned. And
Mm-hmm.
there was like a little bit of a it was just a conversation, I think, but it kind of got a little bit heated, and like like it was nothing untoward. We were just having a discussion. That was the word I was looking for. It was still a
Mm-hmm.
discussion, but I noticed my reaction to things, and then I realized, and this is actually going to move us on to the next question, not intentionally, but the intention of this week. Because I was like, okay, so I am now under I'm learning more about spirituality. We've seen this whole podcast evolve from where we were to where we are now, right? I'm sure people who have been
Mm-hmm.
listening from the very beginning can notice the changes in the both of us. And what I've noticed is intentions are really powerful, but also I'm noticing how I can see myself in other people. And what I mean by that is if something is irritating me, what is within me that's being irritated? If I'm
Mm.
agitated or angry or a little bit like peed off, like what is it in
Mm-hmm.
that person that lives within me? So it's almost like
Mm.
which bell are they ringing that I need to pay attention to that I'm not satisfied with? So instead of me, and I've never been this type of person, I accept other people as they are through all imperfections because we're all imperfect. But I'm now coming to realize actually, what is this person teaching me? So I'm really, really, minute detail, just as you are such a perfectionist in your studies, I am more of a perfectionist in human behavior. And
Mm-hmm.
I've always been interested in psychology and sociology and things like that. And I feel like for me, my intention now is to how can I be the best version of myself today? How can I be the best version of myself right now? And when I'm the best version of myself, I'm giving the best version of myself to other people. And that's my current intention going forward. So what about you? Intentions have a lot of power, Kelly. What is your intention?
My intention is not to be that person that is pushing your buttons, because I think I am.
Why?
Because I, no, because you organize our podcast so intricately, and I always say I'm I've got my last client finishing. I did it tonight, so I'm finishing at 8 p.m. But the podcast starts at 8. It was out. I was out at a place called Mudgeeraba tonight, and as I was driving out there, checking in with another client, the coverage phone coverage really dropped out, and I thought, is this just like right now? Or anyway, it continued for about 10 minutes on and off, heard every second word. And so when Tuls said, "Hey, I'm ready whenever you are," I'm like, "Yeah, well, I'll be another 5 minutes, and then I'll be another 10 minutes on top of that, because I'm probably not going to have internet reception for that 10 minutes." And um, but it's not just tonight. I do it every single week. There's always something. So I know that I have got to say no to things, even though I'm doing it for my own business at the moment. I've still got to say or ask other people to step up a little bit more to cover me, um, and stop pushing Tulse to the edge. Like she's like a donkey on the edge, and it's all because of me.
Oh, listen, I'm gonna just
Mm.
clarify this because obviously we're airing it out in public that I before when we first began recording, those times where you would delay, you really agitated me. And then it got to a point where I began to think again, like this has happened a few years ago. Obviously, when we started the podcast, it was 2020.
Mm,
And then I
mm.
thought, why is this agitating me? Like, I can't control another person. So why is this agitating me? And then I realized that, well, I control this piece, right? And this is probably way more that I could have clarified and described years ago. But right now, I'm like, wait a second, I get to have this time between when we're supposed to start to when we are now starting. And I'm not rushing around. Like, when I was working in motorsport or even working as a coach in the gyms, having appointment, I would be so um I wanted to be in control. I loved being in control of my diary in that sense, but also I wasn't controlling my diary. It was the clients' times. So I liked being on time. I didn't like being late, and everything needed to be in a specific order. And if it wasn't, there would be chaos in my brain. And then since we are starting this podcast, I feel like, Cal, you've taught me how to be more patient. And I love the fact that you are teaching me this. And I feel more comfortable in waiting. And that's not even it's not a bad thing. Like, I get to have this extra time. You know what I mean? And I think because I kind of make time after us, that sometimes, like last week, I've said, okay, well, I won't be able to change this shit this time because I have something else planned. But I
Yes.
always try and leave a buffer. And even when you say, oh, I forgot I've got this dinner, I'm like, okay,
Yes.
because I've forced us to have a buffer with the podcast. And this is why it doesn't air in real time. We have a buffer. And I feel like I'm able to prepare with that buffer, but I'm also being able to be patient with life, with when life gets in the way. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
And it does. And you did tell me about that years ago. So it's not the first time I've been hearing that, just so everyone doesn't think I'm hearing it live, like hearing it in front of everyone. Tols did tell me that I was ticking her off with that. But at the time, I was like, well, I had to say, this is how it is to
Yeah,
myself, or I can't do the podcast,
yeah.
because with the children and husband and just running a family and running a business, that was my priority. The family was my priority. And And I couldn't change that. I didn't want to change that. The
Yeah.
children are my priority. So, yes, all sorted now. Tuls is a little bit more peaceful about it. My kids are a little bit more grown up. Now I've started another business.
But that's the thing. It's like it's being compassionate with each other and our
Mm.
priorities. It's not then, we could easily go, oh, Kelly's doing this and she's not making this a priority. But it's okay because we all individually have our own priorities. So I think that as in a relationship, with any relationship, you need to have that degree of flexibility. So you're teaching me how to be more flexible, more patient, and more understanding, and hopefully a better friend, I feel, because I'm not then just going, oh no, like you could do whatever you want whenever you want. It's we're having a discussion about it. We're just acknowledging each other's preferences and needs. Would you agree with that, Cal?
Yeah. Aren't you just so lucky you've met me?
I am. I really am. Okay, should we talk about how Taylor Swift is being
We probably should.
unapologetically herself? Like, okay, so
Mm.
obviously you know a little bit more about her, and Kelly actually did prep about 4 points in particular. So we might go back and forth on these points. But I had to do my own research. Like I don't really read about celebrities. I don't watch a lot of news. Like I'm very particular about what type of information I let into my brain.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
then I found this very interesting. Like, let's talk about the first thing, authentic
Okay.
songwriting. How do you perceive Taylor Swift to be unapologetically herself when it comes to her songwriting?
Okay. So what did I discover? Well, in listening to her music, I think there's there is a story to it. She
Mm,
has grown up a lot, and from the young person who what's the song named us? The jokes weren't funny. I took the money. Anyway, there's a song and can't remember it. Um, she talks about when she began and she was being exploited. At the time, she kind of knew it, but what could she do about it? She was very young when she started. I think she was 12 when she started, but even at 15 or 17, you're a young person who doesn't, sometimes you don't say yes to things, but because you haven't verbally said no, people will go along as if you've said yes. And I feel like that's where she realized things needed to change for her. And
mm,
instead of not saying no and people assuming she meant yes because she didn't say no, she started saying no. And I think people were shocked by that. So in a few of her songs, that one I just sort of said some of the lyrics to, that
yeah.
one called The Man, one called Mean, I think, Shake It Off.
Yeah.
Do you know any of these that I'm talking
I
about?
I do know Shake It Off. I think
Kind
that's
of.
quite popular. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that is one that you would know, or not just you, but most people
Yeah.
would know. So yeah, I think she learned to stand up for herself, and some of the examples of her standing up for herself do come through musically in those
Yeah.
songs I mentioned.
So here's an interesting thing. As when I was younger,
Hmm.
I actually did want to become a singer. I wanted to become that pop star. I think it wasn't American's Got Talent, but like Britain. No, it wasn't even Britain's Got Pop Idol. That was it. I'm showing my age now. It was Pop Idol, that very first.
You were going to go on it.
No, no, no. Well, it was the
Oh,
first time it actually aired on TV, and it was kind of like in the era of everybody wanted to go on Pop Idol. Like everybody wanted to become a singer. They probably still have that dream right now, but that was the age that I was in high school that I wanted to do this. I wanted to become a singer. And what I discovered was obviously I'm like, okay, well, I need to now look at these people to go, I need to have a demo tape and I need to send out my demo
Wow.
tapes and all these different things. And cut the story short, obviously, I didn't become a famous singer, but what I did do was I was constantly singing. I was constantly like taking lessons. I actually had Charlotte Church's coach as my coach, and I was taking
Mhm.
singing lessons and actually just getting better as a singer individually. And what I had noticed was, even before I actually even had the dream of becoming a singer, I would constantly sing around the house, but I would write music down. I would create
Mm.
poems and be writing things down. So what I noticed is, I think that's probably how my self-reflection and journaling evolved, because I was writing poems and songs basically. And what I realized is, the everybody who writes their own songs, particularly, like, obviously we're talking about Taylor Swift, but any singer-songwriter who writes their own songs, that is like opening a diary into their thoughts,
Mm.
into their emotions, into their vulnerabilities, and like it is literally tearing a page out of their diary and then singing it out. So I can understand the sense of insecurity that one might have, to go, I'm pouring myself into this song and my time, my energy,
Mm.
my vulnerabilities, my emotions. I don't even know if it's going to be received in the way I want it to receive. But you kind of like let it out into the world and kind of see what happens. And I know that a Taylor Swift, I think you mentioned this, Kelly, but I'm just going to read this out. I didn't know this about her. So there was talk about um a big record label. So Scooter Braun and Scott Borchetta, the Big Machine Productions, had basically in June 2019, um, Braun's Theta Holdings had acquired Big Machine Label Group. That record label owned Taylor Swift's master recordings to her album, especially Reputation. So Swift had actually expressed she was in dismay and frustration over the sale, that she wasn't really given the opportunity to buy back her own music. And then that Braun and Big Machine's founder, Scott Borchetta, had being accused of essentially bullying and manipulation. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying, Kelly, about her being maybe a little bit younger and trying to speak up for herself, right? So
Mm.
Swift had actually made a public statement, and that ignited a debate about artist rights and ownerships in the music industry. And I didn't know this, but I basically, this is kind of going on to the second part of her being unapologetically herself, is she basically started re-recording her back catalog. And I was in the US recently, and we were listening to Kelly Clarkson kind of like host this radio show. So she would put a lot of her own songs in, and she would
Mm.
have these little stories in the gaps. There wasn't any adverts. And I absolutely loved this radio station. And basically, Kelly Clarkson has said the story that she was the influencer and friend who suggested to Taylor Swift to re-record her content. And actually, because of the original recordings that she wasn't able to acquire, she was having to re-record her back catalog. So then she can reclaim her ownership and actually have control of her legacy. And I actually found that really interesting, that actually she led the way to actually look at ownership, look at the music rights industry. And I was watching a program recently about how there's still unequal pay between men and women. And in the US, like, it's probably a different statistic now. This is probably years ago, but the last statistic that I looked at was women were being paid $77 to every dollar the man was being paid. So I won't be surprised if that's still happening in the music industry. And I feel like Taylor Swift's um tenacity and authenticity, the way she needed to stand up for herself in regarding injustice, adversity, has really helped other people do the same thing. I know I spoke quite a lot of information in that, but what do you think, Cal?
Yeah, I think she has given other people at least the idea that they can do it. Um, yeah, yeah. I think she's a great role model for young people, not just young girls, but young people in general who don't feel like they have a platform or a voice.
Yeah.
She's like, just think outside the box. And it was Kelly Clarkson. I think she just did it as a tweet, like, yeah, it's because this is part of the background as well. Taylor Swift called on her fans, the Swifties,
Ah.
to let Scooter and Scott Borchetta let them know how they felt about them taking or buying Taylor's back catalogue. And apparently within days, maybe hours even, they had made these two guys who were truly just, in the background of the music industry. Everyone knew their name.
Mm.
And like even I knew their name or had heard their name, and I didn't really know what they did, but I didn't even know what a music producer did, or whatever they were. But yeah, you got to know it through that. But apparently they went a little bit too far, the Swifties, and started sending death threats.
Oh no.
And yeah,
They
but
just took it too far.
yeah, just a step too far. Yeah, but it just did show Taylor herself probably the amount of power she actually did hold and we wield,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And it did go too far, and she would probably agree with that. I don't know her. Um, but she seems like a very nice person. Um, I hope that doesn't backfire on me. I hope she really is a very nice person.
We'll have a
Um,
clip in the future going, well, that didn't age well.
yeah, well, that didn't age well at all. Yeah, no, I feel like she's nice, nice
But the funny
person.
thing is, okay, let's have a look at this in a second. Celebrities in
Hmm.
general, people think they know
Hmm.
them. And like, obviously, we're
Yeah.
talking about Taylor Swift here, and we're looking at her being
Hmm.
unapologetically herself. There are case in point. There's more points coming, guys. So keep listening in. But for some of you are like, oh, celebrity, I'm turning off, or oh, it's a celebrity, they're getting death threats. Like you can literally have such a rainbow of emotions when it comes to celebrity because a lot of people think that this is the person of their best friend, but all you're seeing is a highlight reel. In all fairness, all we are seeing is
Mm.
a highlight reel. So we don't know. We just said at the beginning of this podcast, there are layers to us. There is multiple layers and different
Yep.
characteristics that we box in within ourselves that sometimes we're not aware of. And until you take that deep dive, we then think that we know what a celebrity is doing and why, and then thinking that the characteristic is good based on our own perception and judgment. So based on that, it was basically you called attention to this, Kelly. There was a
Hmm.
sexual assault case. Can
Mm.
you go in a little bit deeper regarding that one? Regarding Taylor
Mm.
Swift?
Okay. Yeah. So this one was when she was even younger again. So in 2019 was the music ownership dispute, but in 2017 there was this a sexual assault. That was the trial. So it happened in 2013, I think, 4 years before that. So I actually don't know how old she was then, but maybe young 20s. Yeah, 10 years younger, so mid 20s. So anyway, she took the stand in a civil trial against a radio DJ who I don't even know if she met him at a meet and greet for the radio station, but he asked for a photograph with
Mm,
her at this meet and greet. And when she stood in between him and I believe it was his girlfriend, he put his hand on her bottom cheek. So he had put his hand up her skirt. And I don't know what she was wearing, but obviously the kind of skirt that you could put your hand up, but just because she was wearing that didn't mean she intended for anyone
mm,
to put their hand up the skirt and grab it, grab her bottom cheek. And that's what she took him to court for. Um, so she apparently there's no actual recordings, or we are not privy to what she actually said,
mm,
but reports are that she was very composed and very steadfast in her testimony and stood firm in her assertion that he had assaulted her.
mm,
um, and the jury did actually rule in her favor. I think she only asked for $1. She doesn't need $2 or more dollars. And so it was a symbolic $1, but it was about the win. So him putting his hand up her skirt onto her bottom cheek, um, I would still call that traumatic. Would you not?
I would too. Like, I actually did
Mm,
a little bit of digging around this because, again, I don't know any of this.
okay.
I was like, I did some digging on the internet, and apparently Taylor described the situation as being shocked, violated, and uncomfortable. And I found the same thing, that she remained steadfast under cross-examination despite obviously attempts to discredit her testimony. She had addressed the specifics of the incident. She'd highlighted broader issues, which I really like, the fact that she was highlighting the issues around consent, around boundaries, around speaking out against sexual harassment and assault. And not
Yeah.
only having the courage at that age, whatever age you are, it's going to be trauma. For you to uncover the complexities and the details of trying to understand what had happened in your own head, and then describe that to another person who will openly try and
Mm,
discredit you, that's traumatizing in itself. And I feel like she's being an example in herself by having that, in addition to, and at that time I'm pretty sure it was that Me Too movement hashtag. So it basically
maybe.
said, pardon?
Oh, maybe it was me too. I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it was around that era where there was a Me Too hashtag movement, and that basically helped her speak out and amplify that conversation about consent, accountability, and yeah, that $1 in damages was symbolic, but it feels like she wanted to have that influence around her fans. You've also said that she engages with the fans a lot. She does these meets and greets. She is quite frequent on social media, but basically it's saying that she's not just there as a artist, she's there as a female, as a woman, as a person,
Mm.
and she wants to convey that as well in what she does. So yeah, like I said, I've never known about any of this. I think one of the biggest things that I've seen, and we had a conversation about this in the green room, didn't we, Cal, is about uh the Kim Kardashian and Kanye West incident. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen this where she was literally cut off in the middle of her award acceptance speech by Kanye West. And I just found it
Yeah.
funny. Like, I just found it funny, and everybody was really embarrassed for Kanye West. He wasn't embarrassed for himself, but obviously, um do you remember that? Like, what was the actual song that Kanye West released? Was it Famous? And he was talking about
Yes.
Swiftie in a derogatory way?
Yes, he said the lyrics were, "I feel like Taylor and I might still have sex because I made that bitch famous."
Ah, okay,
And the
okay.
phone call was allegedly of him asking permission to say that, but her response, even on the what do you call it, like the doctored phone recording, even her response at the time was kind of like, well, nothing I can do about it, really. Like, I'm
Mm,
not thrilled about it, but not much I can do about it. But he left out that he was going to call her a bitch. And, that no one likes to be called that.
yeah.
So, anyway, that's really what I think it all came down to, is that he released more than he said he was going to, and then the Kim K and Kanye, the KKK, said that they had a recording of her agreeing to it, and
Okay.
then
But it
yeah,
was
and then she was called a
sabotaged, right? It
snake.
was actually
It
controversial
was, yes,
in
it was,
itself.
yes, it was a doctored tape, yeah,
Okay.
or recording,
And
yeah.
so, do you remember the songs that Taylor Swift hit back on?
I think, from what little research I did and remember this week, it was the one where she's in the bathtub with all the diamonds, called "Look What You Made Me Do."
You know what? I really
Do you
do
know
like
that one?
that song.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that one addresses let's call it the public scrutiny that she
Mm,
faced
yeah,
from Kanye West and Kim Kardashian. So I don't know, it sort of has themes of betrayal and manipulation,
yeah,
and the video, the visual of it is her reclaiming power as a response to the events surrounding the incident.
yeah.
So yeah, I think that was the song that was letting her know she doesn't really like them.
Yeah. And that's the
They're not
thing.
really my
It's like, yeah, it's another way of speaking out. And as I said earlier, like artists get to tear out their diary and then put it in such a
mm,
beautiful way. And the fact that Taylor
mm,
Swift can actually, and I actually went to a Taylor Swift concert. And when
mm,
she did the Reputation tour, like
mm,
that whole album, I did listen to before actually. No, actually, I think it was after the concert. I was listening to these songs. I was like, these songs are really good. And there was some familiar like love story and things like that. But then I
yeah,
realized that this girl, okay, she may be criticized for not being an entertainer, like dancing and going about that. And she's never claimed to be an amazing dancer, but she does
no,
like, even going to a concert, we were wearing this was a good few years ago, but we were wearing these wristbands, and me and my brother, because neither of us were obviously huge Taylor Swift fans, but we'd obviously went to the concert, and there was, like, the actual lighting from the wristbands, the way they had
mm,
provided those technologies to actually mimic the
mm,
songs and go in certain wave patterns. Like me and my brother were just
mm,
astounded about the production of it. And I feel like
yes,
she does that so well. And the Reputation
exactly.
album, yeah, well, I
Mm,
just ended up listening to the Reputation album and I felt that it was more of a raw version of herself. It was like really, as we said,
oh,
obviously now I understand it was her hitting back and speaking up for herself in those real life
yes.
events and circumstances. Yeah, it does reclaim her narrative. It does come across on the album, and I had no clue what it was about, but I really the power in what she was trying to come across. And I feel like even if we're not put in those situations in our own lives, we can then adopt it to our own situation, right? We can see and listen to a song, and what do they say? When we attach emotion to it, it sits in our long-term memory. And that's basically what
Yes,
artists like Taylor Swift are doing. They're putting something that probably can't be um narrated in a specific way, but they get to put music and songs and lyrics and harmony to these messages, and it really does resonate in all these different ways. And I feel like that's why fans and people are music lovers, because they're able to then get through whatever they're supposed to get through the support of
yeah,
music.
yeah. And poetry.
Yes.
It's poetry to music.
Yeah.
Some of the ways my nana used to say that if you have a potty mouth, you don't know how to speak English very well, and
Okay.
probably whatever language, you know,
Yeah.
and to my nana it was, and I'm the same as my nan, uh, sprinkling a few swear words in a sentence, and it's very hard for me to understand what you're saying. Well,
Mm,
not very hard. It's harder for me to understand exactly what you mean and the intensity of what you mean
yeah.
compared to if you use actual words that show context and intensity. So dropping the F bomb twice, does that mean very, very? Does it mean, is it just your normal language? It's hard to see where people, how heightened they are with what they're saying. But I think Taylor Swift and quite a few other artists as well do that very well. They won't just say my heart broke. They'll say,
Yeah.
oh, I can't think of an example. But if you think of a Taylor Swift song, and please let us know if you know the words that I'm trying to think of. But she'll say other things that she means her heart broke,
Yeah.
but she doesn't just say my heart was broken in two, which is what I'd say. What would you
But
say, Tuls, in your songwriting other life?
Well, the thing is like if I put myself in that position, I would go back to that
Mm,
poetry. It's like, what would I mimic it towards?
mm,
Would it be the river running through a torrential storm? Like, would it be, looking at the mountains, or would
mhm.
I liken it? What metaphor would I use? And I feel like with being an artist, they have a plethora of metaphors, and I really like the way you broke it down to how you um listen a lot. And even going back to that initial message when you said at the beginning of the podcast that you are a listener, so actually understanding people's words and the meaning behind it is actually saying, well, you want to learn a little bit more about the intent, about the underlying meaning, rather than superficially putting words out there. And I feel like as an artist, you're able to do that in multiple ways. Like, you can find multiple ways to say love. You can find multiple ways to say
Mm.
anguish or heartache or grief. And I feel like the way they do that in such a particular way will resonate with their audience. And Taylor Swift, I feel like since she started as a young age, she's got her audience who are kind of
Yeah.
following her as she ages. So even though her music is not the same as what it was when she was 10, 12 years old, she's having her audience grow up with her. And it's almost like she's tailoring the story and the narrative to events of her life, which may be similar to events of other people's lives. When you're going through high school and you've got your own battles with your own people, or, trying to build up your own reputation in a specific industry of work or career, like, people can resonate with that. And she does it in such a clever way.
She does. So she can make simple things say with more complexity, or she can say complex things and make it sound very simple. Like the Shake It Off song is
Mm.
like
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting
re-
it now. Yeah,
yeah, very simple lyrics, but very deep meaning. I
absolutely.
think.
Well,
I think.
I think that pretty much wraps up what we're thinking about Taylor Swift. If you are a Swiftie, or if you have no idea what we're talking about, please let us know. Did this podcast resonate with you? Did you learn a few things just like I did about Taylor Swift? And in the context of who you are you able to take those examples to be more unapologetically yourself? So I just want to end with one question, Cal. I know
Mhm.
we always end up with the health motivational tip of the day, but I'm going to twist that question and just say, what would be the version of the unapologetically version of Kelly? What advice would you
Mhm.
give?
Um, oh gosh, learn to say no to things. Honesty. Honesty has got to be where you start and finish in
Mm,
relationships and in friendships, and just for yourself. You know, stop and have a think about it. Are you being honest with yourself? Are, are you in a position and you go, did I make the decisions that actually got me here?
mm,
Probably.
yeah, yeah.
And can I make the decisions to get me out of this? Definitely. Right? You always have choices. And I think um, that's a very important thing to remember as well. So be honest with yourself, and always remember that you have choices.
I love that. I love that. Being unapologetically yourself, having the ability to say no, holding accountability to the decisions that you're making. And I love that. I absolutely do love it, because I feel like people aren't really honest with themselves. As I said earlier, people are still getting to know themselves. We're still evolving. We're still learning. When we read a new piece of information, how are we taking that information? Are we acting on it? Are we, trying to better ourselves? And this isn't going to resonate with everyone. People just think, well, I'm happy where I am. And I'm predicting they're probably not that type of audience who are listening to this podcast if they are just happy with where they are.
Probably not.
Right? So I feel like if you are
Right.
being
Yeah.
unapologetically yourself, you're not going to please everyone. And being honest with yourself about what you want and where you want to go and who you want to spend time with, where your energy goes, that is a big part of being honest with yourself, but also conveying that to others. Like, it probably wasn't a pleasant conversation for me to say to Kelly, I don't agree with you being late, but it was something that needed to happen. When people say, I don't like conflict, I don't like confrontation, nobody does. But you can get better
Nobody
in
does.
articulating how you feel without hurting
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you saying that actually at the time really made me realize what was important.
Yeah.
So because it seemed to you that the podcast wasn't important to me, I was able to say, yeah, it is pretty far down the list.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. And that was hard for me to say to you because I don't want to hurt people.
Yeah.
I probably was more of a people pleaser than I am now. I'm a little bit more like, I'm not going to hurt people's feelings, not deliberately, but I'm not going to do something just to please someone at the expense of someone else or at the expense of someone of myself, you know.
Absolutely. And like let's just kind of reflect about how old we are. We're still learning this. And sometimes
Yes,
people pleasing can happen in your 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s.
probably. I bet actually.
Right?
Yeah, I bet. Look, if you're
So
in your 90s now, you've done it for so long.
yeah, exactly. It's hard to
Yeah,
break
you
out of
don't know
those
any other way.
patterns. So, listen, I think that's probably a good point to kind of round up our podcast. And if this is something that you liked, hopefully we can integrate it in terms of having guests, me and Kelly having discussions on health and wellness, and start to integrate some people in the public eye who are unapologetically themselves. So, if this is something that you resonated with, please let us know. And Kelly, thank you so much for suggesting
Mhm.
this. I've had such a ball. I always do anyway, but I've really enjoyed this discussion.
I'm glad you did. Thank you. I did too.
We'll see you all on the
No, it
next
was
one. We'll speak to you soon, Cal.
okay. Bye.
Bye.